Kinomagewapkung, meaning the rocks that teach. Wapkung is where the rocks are situated. Kinomage is to teach. Years and years ago, if there was a child that was picked out that was very active, from the time they're born, their legs are going, and they knew that this child grew up to be a pretty smart person, and they would be taken over by some of the elders. This young person would be brought to the Petroglyphs. It wasn't for anybody to find out. It was only for this young person that was being trained. He becomes an elder, sort of a priest in his own right, I might say. My grandfather lived to be 112. He talked about the teaching rocks. That's how I found out about them. He brought people there. He went over and stayed with the Indian people that were on Stony Lake then, you see. I think history was being opened up to me, which I never sensed to be of any value until I became older and saw my children and my grandchildren. Then I knew that I had something to impart. And I've gone over it and try to visualize in my mind what I'm going to say to the young people, that they may listen, that I won't sound too drab, that they might take some of my advice. According to the elder that read it, they would be Algonquin Ojibway people that made the carvings. The rock is like coarse crystals of salt, and if it was just hammered away at, it would break and it could be gouged out that way. At one time, the depth of the carving in the rock was the depth of a person's fingers folded at the joint. So it would be maybe 2.5 or 3 inches deep. Now they're almost even. It was covered by leaves and pine needles, and that protected it. But once it was opened up in 1954, and then it began to deteriorate very quickly. Whenever they would go to teach, they would open it up and then cover it back up again. It tells something of life early, way, way back, and then what was to happen. And there are things there about the female of the species, what her work is, that she is the foundation of the family, and things like that, These are things that were just given a little bit to us. An elder came, and he began to read it. He'd never seen it before. And yet, the more he saw it, the more he could read it. But he's just giving us enough. He's not giving us everything. Because he doesn't want us to take shortcuts that we feel that we know all about it, and when we really don't. We have to live a certain way before we can carry the wisdom that it has. But I think the elder just felt that we were not ready for it. And you can't pressure him into telling you anymore. That's it's his right, and if he feels that we're not ready for it, he's just not going to tell us. The elder has not told us totally, because he has told us that you don't learn from the top, you learn from the basics. And until you know the basics, then you can be told the remainder, he said. The medicine wheel, the wheel of life, one could say, usually starts from the east, where life begins, where day begins. As life goes on, the midlife in the south and the sunset is where our life ends. In the north, our spirits may be when the tobacco is burned, meeting the sun. We are put on this earth to look after our mother, the earth. There are many things that will happen. And maybe some of the children will abuse our mother, the earth. And it's up to you to redirect them that they are not supposed to do it. We're put on this earth to look after it, not to mutilate it. And from what I tell you, you will mix with your experiences and tell the young. Animals tell you that coexist, you know. And I think this is the pattern that most Indian people try to live by. All animal life, everyone is endowed with a soft voice that animals will understand. We were always told to speak softly to them. Speak softly to them. Your voice indicates that you mean them no harm. This is what we were always told. You know, there's a time when you're hungry that you have to kill an animal, but coexist with it when you don't need to kill it, because they're beautiful, they're lovely to watch, and you're honored that you can be near them without them running away from you. It's a wonderful feeling to have that. That's what coexistence is about. The heron has always been regarded for many things, because the heron is one of the birds that arrests the overpopulation of diseased fish. They walk along the shoreline and they spear these fish that are becoming sick. You know, were it not for the heron, I think there would be a lot of illnesses by the smaller fish, and it would transmit to the larger fish that live on it. And that's why it's held in high regard for that reason. My family are a beaver clan. We couldn't trap beaver. It's like a godfather, you might say. It was my grandmother's totem. And she said, watch the beaver, you'll learn much from him. Every plant, every blade of grass has a right to grow. And whenever you set your teepee up or your shelter, don't leave it there for long, because you will kill the grass if you leave it there. Move your shelter. That's why the Great Spirit has given you a strong body to be able to do these things. And I will meet you, and I will ask you to repeat to me what I have told you. Indian people were very well traveled, you know. In the course of a season, they would go right down around Sarnia, all the way around Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, and back down, back home again. Lake Superior to the Ojibway were known as Ojibway, meaning the large body of water of the Ojibway, being entirely encompassed by the Ojibway language. There are a number of paintings around the shorelines of Lake Superior of things that happened and were to happen. Many times the Sioux would come down the rivers in Minnesota, out at Duluth, and the Ojibway used to paddle across in the moon of May, because that is the quiet month. And they would get together and they would exchange medicines, and then they would head back again before the moon of May was gone, because the wind begins to blow pretty heavily. Paintings are found in many places throughout the Ojibwe-speaking world. You can find them in the most unusual places. If a noted elder had a dream He knew that this dream had a great deal of meaning, and he would paint on the rocks, and he knew that sooner or later there would be someone that could translate what these paintings are. And the day would come that some young person or an elder would come and be able to read that and have a knowledge of it. It may be 1 or 2 generations before a person comes along to read what has been written. I think there are places in the Great Lakes that have not yet been found. I've been told that there have been scrolls hidden away in Lake Superior. I've heard people talk about them as a kid, you know, the birch bark writings and so on. The Medea religion is a slow process. These are the basic things to be able to coexist and see the good in everything. These are the things that are very difficult for people to adjust to. The sweat lodge is a purification process of it. When you go to an elder, you use a great deal of respect, and you take to him tobacco. They have a sweat first. He performs that. And then he takes them out, and they fast for 4 days, and then he brings them out. And they have another sweat, and then they have the ceremony. And then there's a feast after that.
The sweat lodge, it's created by the Great Spirit. Like the rocks, it's from the Mother Earth. And like the circle of the sweat lodge, it's the Mother Earth. And the people that make the ceremony, they are created by the Creator. The water, it's part of the nature that cleans you up. The water's got spirit too. That's why it goes into the sweat lodge, to pour the water into the rocks.
There is so much to the sweat lodge because you no longer have the worries or the bothers that you had before you began to sweat. Your mind is no longer in turmoil. You're at peace with everything. And it is the most wonderful feeling to have. As we left Burley Falls to enter Stony Lake, we knew we were getting close to our destination. We paddled the length of Stony Lake, admiring the shorelines, and eagerly awaiting for the sound of Eels Creek, which would direct us to where we were going. We came to these rocks known as Shinogewapkong that pointed to the area that we were going to. We saw animals, deer, and they looked at us. They did not run. They too knew that we were in hallowed ground, that there would be no harm come to them by our hands.
Following the path in our moccasined feet, making no sound. I felt scared because I felt eyes on me. We did not speak because it was a place of reverence. This is where some of our elders had gone to think and to pray.
I went over towards the southern end of it, and I could hear water running. I thought to myself, gee, I wonder how far down that is. I wonder if maybe that's the reason that they made these impressions here. And I had many thoughts.
Just fantastic, the sounds and the images that are imprinted in my mind just while listening to that underground river.
The Creator has always sent messengers or prophets to help guide mankind in the way that our lives should be conducted in a way of balance. But they neither take away anything that has been said in the past, but they may add to it. But each one of these prophets or messengers are like chapters in the book.
It's up to us to go back to our traditional ways, that we'll try and warn the white man before he poisons the whole earth. Don't contribute to the mess that's being made. And you have young people that you'll be guiding and instill upon them the importance of it. Because not only the young people, their young people will have to live. And what we do now, we start the ball rolling. There's a great need for it. And the young people today are asking. They're asking. They want to go back. They can be quiet and think while they look at it and come up with their own thoughts. Not everybody's vision is blocked. The Great Spirit picks out certain people and tells them things. And this may be what can happen. I think the fact that if you can just think when you look at it, think, and it will make some sense to you. It'll give you a sense of peace about you, that there was people that existed at one time with wisdom